Hello, people of the sort of vinyl world. We are back to do a sort of this discussion that we have going. I don't know what you call your thing, Alan.
I call it two takes on 10 records.
I should do that too, but then again, I think we're competing against the search words and stuff like that. So maybe we'll hold to where we are. Yeah, I love these discussions, and I hope that we get a good one going to today.
One of the commenters on my video a while ago said, "I like your interactions with the Swede." So I'm thinking maybe retitle this "Interactions with the Swede." So
yeah, that's a great title. Super title.
You could do interactions with the Canadian. So that, yeah,
interaction with the Canadian. I have I think that we have a pretty nice sort of a lineup today of records, and I'm pretty comfortable with my surprise one also. The thing is that we show each other 4 records each that we know that we both have in our collection, and we talk a little bit about each record. So 8. Is it 8?
Yeah, eight, and then 2 surprises. That's right.
And 2 surprises that no one knows of us knows.
What it is. Well, I know about mine, and you know about yours.
Yeah, I know, but that's true. Should we get the stuff going, or do you have anything more to
no,
add?
just to say that this is that I love doing these videos. They're pretty fun, and yeah, let's just keep her going.
Yeah. So one record that we have in common in our collection, and I think that every single jazz fan out there, both watching your videos and my videos, have in one way or another, is Miles Davis Sketches of Spade.
Yeah.
So I pulled this. I wanted to talk about this because this is not sort of the Miles Davis record that I liked the best from the get-go, so to say. This is from 1960. It's very orchestral. He worked with Gil Evans on this one, and now I know that it's a great collaboration, but I didn't think so at first. And he blends like Spanish folk music with sort of the jazz that he was modal jazz from the 1960. It has to be the modal sort of jazz that he was influenced by. And worked with, and there are some known sort of Miles related musicians on this one, but it's mostly sort of the Gil Evans musicians, so to speak. I read somewhere that you have Jimmy Cobb playing drums on this, or percussion, or whatever it's called, but also Elvin Jones, which is a nice sort of blend of 2 drummers.
No.
Yeah, when I first heard this many moons ago, it was so different compared to Kind of Blue that I started off with when it came to Miles Davis, but also jazz in general. So when I heard this, I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all. And we have talked a little bit about me and the sort of bossa nova sound and the sort of those kind of rhythms and stuff like that. And I wasn't a fan of this. But this has, through the years, grown to be one of my, if not my favorite Miles Davis record in his catalog. This is a masterpiece. Mm-hmm. So now I have talked for like 5 minutes. What's your take on this, Alan?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, well, bunch of things. First of all, as you said, atypical Miles Davis record, right? I mean, this is, you could set up his discography all the way from the late 40s and listen to them record by record by record, and then boom, you get to this, and it's a whole different thing. And what I understand about this, I reviewed this a while ago, and it's he and Gil Evans, who's Canadian. I need to just put a plug in, right? Cool. Just like a lot of Canadians just have to go to the States to make it big. But in any event, he and Gil Evans were really getting into flamenco music, and their wives at the time were into flamenco music. So they were busy going to record shops and buying up flamenco tunes and classical Spanish compositions and so on. And yeah, to me, I'm not even sure that you necessarily have to call this record jazz, right? I mean,
no,
Miles Davis is playing on it, so maybe inherently it's jazz, but there's a lot of orchestral stuff here, but I think it's just it's fabulously beautiful. And the way, I think for me, the real magic is the way that Miles's trumpet mimics that kind of, that, and I don't know the style of singing, but it's sort of the flamenco style of singing almost, you know, the Southern Spanish style of singing. The way that he does that, you know, in pieces which are clearly supposed to be a vocal lament, but he's actually just playing the trumpet instead.
Yeah. Okay.
So beautiful. And I've actually heard what you said from others too, that they didn't come to it at first. You know, the first they were like, this is not, you know, kind of blue. This isn't cooking or steaming or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But it's just an incredible record, and with some amazing. It's a fusion record in a kind of world music kind of, you know, jazz Spanish music kind of way.
Yeah, I can agree to that.
Spectacular.
I revisited the sort of the latest Miles Davis documentary. I don't know what it's called, Birth of the Cool or something like that. It's on Netflix, and I think it was Frances, his second wife, who went to a flamenco concert, and he didn't want to go to the concert. He didn't like the flamenco music, but after that, he and, as he said, Gil Evans just went out, bought every single flamenco record he could find, and the rest is, I mean, history. I love it. And just to, I mean, we talk about music, but we are also sort of vinyl nerds. So just to talk about my pressing for 2 seconds. I actually found in a big lot of records that I bought, big collection, I found this is the second UK press on CBS. Now in the UK or in Europe, I think, because even in France and in Germany, it was first released on Fontana. So it was Columbia in the States, and then Fontana here in Europe. So this is the first press on the CBS label. Really? Sounds pretty good, but I would love to have like a audiophile pressing of this. If any record, if I had an audiophile pressing, this should be it, because it's so soft, it's so smooth, the music.
There's something is just in my brain, and I'm sure somebody watching this will know. And so if you do, please put it in the comments. But I'm pretty sure there has been like an Acoustic Sounds or something, yes, re-release of this, which I'm sure is amazing. I have a much less auspicious. This is like I think a 19. It's, you know, the much more recent Columbia label. This is like a 71 or something like that. But yeah, it's just it's just a lovely sounding record in general, and Columbia represses are always pretty good, so there's never much of an issue there. But yeah, super choice, Jonas. That is an amazing.
I think we went off kind of with a bang here, so it's going to be hard to follow up this.
Now, okay, so now it's pressure, is what you're saying.
Yeah, no pressure at all, Allan.
We're starting to get some edge now in the series. Okay, good. Okay, so my so I will respond to that pressure by producing George Benson's White Rabbit. Now, I don't have the classic cover. This is, of course, is on CTI records, and you've got the more classic cover. I have a because I love those glossy old CTI covers. I don't know why, but CTI did a kind of weird one. They put all the names of the players in there. Anyway, this to me is one of the great CTI jazz records. If CTI is kind of a polarizing label, you know, for some people think it's just, this is, you know, Creed Taylor's schlocky, you know, smooth jazz stuff. And it's true. There are always elements of that in CTI's catalog. And then as you go on in the 70s, they get lazy and sloppy, and it gets very smooth jazz. And frankly, to my ears, not very interesting. But in the early 70s, this is an amazing label. And this, I think, is, if I were asked to produce a record, which is a good example of this, where you have stunning, like the jazz players here are top ranked, like Herbie Hancock, Ron Carter, Hubert Laws, Airto, right, Billy Cobham, and not to mention George Benson. So these guys are all ringers.
Yeah,
right? They're all incredible players. But they're not playing straight ahead jazz. There's a heavily funk influence here, and on top of that, they're also covering pop tunes. It was, which is, you know, all the Blue Note people are like, well, that's why I think it's so. But I mean, you know, the Blue Note guys were just covering freaking show tunes from Broadway, right? Yep. So I don't see exactly what. So, you know, regular viewers of mine will know, I don't have much time for people who dump on jazz funk and who are kind of this, 55 to 65 blue note snobs. Like, I love that music, but it's not the only, it's not the only only game in town. But this record is incredible. The two well-known covers of White Rabbit and California Dreaming are amazing. The other thing, but as good as Benson's playing is on here, and it's really good, for me, the real star of this record is actually Jay Berliner and his flamenco guitar, which I think is just spectacular and really lights up. Sebesky's arrangements are pretty good too, right? But it's the flamenco guitar, to me, is the one, like on Summer of 42, like that's what I carry with me in my head from this record whenever I listen to it. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I love it. I have had a lot of CTI records, because back in the day when I started to really hit the thrift stores and stuff like that, I could find so many CTI records for just $1, €2 everywhere. And so I bought a lot of CTI records, but I don't have much left. I've sold most of them, because, as you say, later stuff on CTI is a little bit like elevator music, the sort of the soft.
You gotta be selective. You have to be selective.
Yeah, you gotta be selective. But one of my favorite jazz records is Joe Farrell's what is it called? Okay, brain freeze.
Outback?
No, not Outback. Before that, what did you say?
Canned Funk?
No. I'll come back to that one. But it's one of my favorite records. It's such a great record, and also the cover artworks of CTI is so good. But like Diodado, is that how you pronounce Diodado? Yeah. I have a hard time listening to Diodado, so I've sold those. I think it's a great, and I mean, being jazz musicians this time period, covering popular music, wasn't that a thing in Germany too? I think on the MPS labels and BAFS and stuff like that, there were a lot of those sort of almost electronic jazz guys that covered a lot of the US sort of popular.
You might know that better than me. That's not something I really explored too much. Is that?
Yeah, but it's really, really good. So I don't know if they influenced each other also. I mean, obviously they were listening to each other from the States and in Europe.
I'm a huge Creed Taylor fan, and I think Taylor always prided himself on being able to bridge a bit of a Quincy Jones too, right? In that bridging the jazz and pop lanes, right? In a way which still had some artistic merit. His greatest achievement, of course, is the Getz Gilberto record, right? In that vein, right? Crossover stuff. But yeah, I mean, so that's what he was always trying to do in CTI, but sometimes it just got a bit sloppy and poppy and smooth, right? I think.
I mean, they had to sell records. Yeah. Well, and I mean, if they see something selling, obviously they were going to run with that ball, so to say. So it's logical, but then again, maybe not the stuff that holds over time. But there are a lot of labels that has been like that, and Blue Note is
a good example. Yeah.
I don't have a single sort of 80s, I think, Blue Note record. There are plenty of good records probably, but I don't have them. It's not
interesting. We'll be talking about a Blue Note record for the 70s in a bit. Just I have one more guess on the Joe Farrell. Is it Moon Germs? Is that the one you're thinking of?
No, it isn't.
Okay, well, I'm over 3. And just before we move off this one, I wanted to just shout out to the Mpondo people of South Africa. So a lot of people look at this record and go, that doesn't look like George Benson. Well, no, it's not. It's a woman from the Mpondo people in South Africa wearing a traditional sort of face decoration or makeup and or face painting, I guess. And this is the same people that Winnie Mandela comes from, FYI.
Okay.
So just a little bit of detail, just yet another amazing jazz cover. That was another thing which Taylor always had, with great covers in his records. So anyway, over to you.
Yeah, I've looked it up now. Sorry, I looked at the Joe Farrell, and it's just called. It's from 1970. It's only called Joe Farrell Quartet. So it's a sort of a red cover, and they redid it a couple of years later and called it "Song of the Wind." So it's one of the songs from the record, and this has John McLaughlin playing on guitar on it too. And they do a fantastic version of one of the Mahavishnu Orchestra songs, I think, if I remember it correctly.
Yeah,
but that was
another one. So it's a good record, is it?
Yeah, it's a fantastic record.
Okay.
Shit, I could talk all night. Let's just continue with the next one. And now we get into the more sort of popular and well-known artists, at least. This is Simon Garfunkel, and I found us having this in our collection. And I think that we had more Simon and Garfunkel records in common within our collections. But I have to say, this is one of the Simon and Garfunkel records that I play most often. If I put a record on my turntable, it's often this one, because Bookends and Sound of Silence and not to say Bridge of Troubled Water, I've heard those records so many times, and those songs, I mean, they are everywhere, but this one, it's still interesting. I shouldn't say it's not their best, in my opinion, but it's still interesting. So yeah, it was released in, I'm reading here, 1964, and I guess that this is the debut record with Simon & Garfunkel, the first one that they did in 1964. I tried to find information because Paul Simon released a solo record called the Paul Simon Songbook or something like that in 1965.
Yep.
So I don't have the information about how they went. I think that he started to study or something like that in between the records.
I know the story because I happened to review a long time ago Sounds of Silence, that's the second record.
Yeah.
But so this, because as you say, this is their debut, right? And it flops, right? And it's funny because this is their classic Greenwich Village folk scene record, right?
Yes.
They've got they've got that Dylan cover, they've got the anti-war song, they've got the civil rights song, they got these anti-establishment songs, right? Like it's almost like Greenwich Village. It's like A Mighty Wind, right? This kind of thing, and that if you ever saw that movie, right? But it bombs, and it's bizarre that it bombs because it's a fantastic record, and also it's beautifully recorded. Like the sound is incredible. But what happens is it flops, no airplay, so they split up, and Simon goes over to the UK, meets a girl called Kathy, who of course is the Kathy of later that appears in the songs. And then he releases this album, which doesn't do anything in the UK, the one you talked about, the Paul Simon Songbook. But then the guy, the producer of this, whose name I think is Tom Wilson, remixes Sounds of Silence, adds a band, and it starts to go up the charts. And Simon, when he hears it, hates it, which I understand, because I actually think the acoustic version is way better than the remix version. In fact, that's for everyone playing along at home, the one reason, if there's any reason to get this record alone, it's purely for the acoustic version of Sounds of Silence, which is so good on here. But then they come home and they cut the record. They have the one single Sounds of Silence, the electric version, and so they record quickly a whole rest of an album to push out. So that album is crummy. Personally, I think it's like, this is way better than their second album, but their second album, is the one which people know. And this one, as you say, the great merit of it is that it's not overplayed. Songs like He Was My Brother and Sparrow and Bleecker Street, which is just beautiful.
Favorite Simon Garfunkel songs.
Oh yeah, this is in the top 3 Simon & Garfunkel records, I would say.
I think so too.
And doesn't have as much. When they got more famous later, they got kind of pompous and self-absorbed, and they started to do some experimental stuff, which doesn't really work very well on their later records, because Paul Simon was not really Dylan when it came to lyrics. So sometimes their lyrics are a little bit hokey, but here, awesome. I think.
Yeah,
awesome.
I agree. I think that when I listened to it today, I went back to it and I listened to the entire thing, and to me, it's a searching sort of record. They are searching for their sort of sound. We have two guys, highly intelligent and so much music in them, great producer and everything, and they go into the studio, but they are searching for what are we, what are we going to produce. And so I think that the times are changing. I don't think that that's a very good cover, because they try to do the harmony sort of thing, and in my opinion, it doesn't work. It's a good song.
The worst. I would say it's actually the worst song on the record. It's just like, it's straight ahead. We're just going to sing. It's so one-dimensional. Yeah. It's, you know, and I bet you when the critics picked it up, what the reason it flopped is probably that's the first song they paid attention to, because Dylan was such a huge star, and it's a crummy cover, and I bet the reviews were basically based on impressions from that particular song, because the rest of the songs are great, most of them anyway. You know.
Yeah, and you have Benedictus, which is a sort of a choir, churchy kind of song, but then you get The Sound of Silence, and it's just like everything just falls in the right place, you know. And the Bleecker Street also, and Sparrow, fantastic songs. Yeah. So yeah, so that's why I think that this is maybe, as you say, not the best one, maybe top 3, but it's the most interesting, and the one that I go back to and actually play, because I don't get tired of this record.
Yeah, I agree with you, and thank you for suggesting that. It's a really, as you say, a very interesting record, and quite distinct in their catalog. Okay, so the next record we chose is a bit of a change of pace to Simon and Garfunkel. So probably a little bit. Yes. Probably one crowd moves out, another crowd puts the headphones on, because we have a piece of really, frankly, superb free jazz by Cecil Taylor called Conquistador.
Yes. And
I would just say, first of all, this is one of the great Reed Miles cover designs for Blue Note. I just think this is like a poster-worthy, wall-size photograph. Where, you know, I love the design, everything about it, the fonts, the blurry, out of focus, a photo with the sort of the jagged white lines on his sunglasses. You know, just the whole deal. I mean, Cecil Taylor, just parenthetically too, there are so many really cool jazz photos of Cecil Taylor. The guy was incredibly photogenic, and there's just these wonderful photos of him that you just find around the, anyways, this is another one. So this is what I would call accessible free jazz, right? It's particularly side 1. So it's got, and I think it's because, I mean, Taylor was, you know, it was a man on a mission. He apparently was notoriously hard to get along with too. Like, he was a spiky character. I mean, he was a gay black man in the late 50s and early 60s. And so no doubt he suffered all kinds of discrimination and criticism that other people wouldn't have had to suffer. And so not walked a mile in his shoes. And so he had a lot to deal with, right? So he's excused for being spiky, but he was a spiky guy. And, but he has some people here, some regular collaborators who I think the way that they play with him, particularly on the first side, makes it really work. And those are Jimmy Lyons on alto sax and Bill Taylor on trumpet. And because Taylor himself is, sorry, did I say Bill Taylor? Bill Dixon. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, because Taylor himself is, you know, really quite out there and quite atonal in his playing. And Lyons and Dixon, man, this is kind of jazz nerdy, but they're kind of more modal, and it tends to be focused around some, you know, a modal scale. Whereas like I feel that Taylor is, you know, he probably does have a sort of a centering point of music in his own head when he's playing, but to my ears, it's all over the place, right? Yeah. Not in a bad way, but it is. But Lyons and Dixon somehow kind of bring it back to, you know, to a more
almost
it becomes more accessible, it's more recognizable. I'd even say melodic at points, right? And then because it's all improvised, the Taylor responds to that, and he moves kind of into that space for a while and so on. And in particular, first of all, I just love the fact that it's like, okay, classic free jazz record, right? Here's like, okay, side 1 track, right? You know, there it is. And then side 2, 1 track.
Doesn't look like any grooves at all.
Oh yeah, exactly. No, you're getting, and it's like kind of like Pharoah Sanders, where Bob Thiel had to say to him, or Ed Michel had to say, you know, had to sort of dim the lights to get them to stop. I'll have to put that back in later. But
make him stop playing.
Yeah, make them stop playing, because otherwise they would just keep going for hours, right? So they had to get to down to less than 30 minutes. Yeah, so this is I like side one more than side two, like the title track of side one, because it's got more white space. Side two is kind of sometimes what I don't like about free jazz, where there's just too much going on, and it's just too frantic. And I'm sure it's meaningful to the players, and I don't want to denigrate it, but it's not really my thing. But side one, I think, is just that sweet spot between it's not anything other than free jazz and the new thing. It really is that, but it's downright hummable at certain points, right? So I think really interesting. And yeah, I got things to say, but what do you think about it?
Yeah, man, I agree. I think that it's a pretty nice record for people to get into free jazz, maybe the first side at least. Maybe a record that one could recommend amongst a few other records that is very easy to get into when it comes to the freer jazz and the new jazz. I remember when I bought this and Unistructures at the same time. It was Unistructure. I have a photo here. Was that before? Or
yeah, that was the record just before. And that also has Lyons and Dixon on it as well.
But I think that this is a better record than that. I play this more often than I play unit structures. That's a fantastic record also. I mean, I love Cecil Taylor because not all Cecil Taylor that I have heard is fantastic or masterpieces or everything, but he's really pushing the boundaries of what is jazz or music, really. And I have so much respect for the guy for doing that. So yeah, fantastic record, great choice. And I agree about the cover artwork. Like many Blue Note records, it just works. It's just so fantastic. It's beautiful. It could be framed and hanged on a wall. But if I came to my boss and showed him this picture, he wouldn't. I mean, give it a go. So it's just perfect. So often.
It's great. Okay, so what do you have for us next?
Next is Santana.
Okay.
We both have, like every single woman, man, and child on this planet, have a copy of Abraxas, right? So, but when I saw this today, I was just like, shit, I need to talk about this, because I've played this a lot now. I just, not too long ago, I got new speakers and a new sort of phono preamp and stuff like that. And I was searching for records to really test it, to see. And I ended up playing Abraxas more than anything else, because the intro to this like mammoth of a record is perfect to try out your system, in my opinion. And everything from, I mean, there's not a bad track on it, there is not a bad second on it. The cover artwork is beautiful. I mean, iconic. It's going to go to history. So yeah, it's just a through and through solid record. And this is the second one that Santana released, isn't it? He made a self-titled record before this with a sort of a lion's head or something like that. It's been so long since I played that, so I can't really say anything about the music on that one. But this is so well recorded. They had to throw a lot of money on this.
Yeah.
But I don't know the background of Santana. How did he end up doing this record?
Yeah, that's something I haven't done a ton on either, but that's to come. But
okay,
I would say, I mean, one of the reasons this record is great is Santana is obviously so much more than Black Magic Woman and Oyo Como Va, right?
Oh, yeah.
Through the two songs for which he's best known, but and this record demonstrates that he's so much more than that. But those songs are also on here, right? So that first side is, I mean, that is one of the great rock and roll sides, right? I mean, again, rock / Latin, because large parts of that, I mean, the Oyo Como Va is a Tito Puente number. became obsessed with that song at a certain point a couple of years ago, because I wanted to go back and I found the original Tito Puente version of it, which is great. But I also found a couple other versions, particularly one by the Joe Cuba Sextet, which is an incredible version of it. But I actually had to learn a bit of Spanish to figure out what the lyrics mean. And so for those who have been singing along the wrong words, here are the lyrics of Spanish, which is Oye como va mi ritmo. So that means basically, here I go with my rhythm. Bueno para gozar, which is great for having fun. Mulata, which means, woman of mixed race. Anyway, so that's what it means, and that's, they repeat that over and over and over again. Anyway, so I never knew what they meant. So I've always been sort of saying those Spanish words sort of wrongly. So anyway, so there we go. But yeah, it's great. I love the percussion on here is incredible. Like on Se Acabo on side 2, the percussion there, Carlos's tone on that track is just fantastic. The only track, Mother's Daughter, I think is just okay, but everything else I think is brilliant. Samba Pati is amazing. Also like the organist, Greg Rowley, like Santana's a star, but he's also a star in this record. Like Hope You're Feeling Better, that could be a Deep Purple tune. Yeah, right? Yes. Like, you could just imagine John Lord knocking that one out, right? Anyway. Yeah, and so much, and you get the variety on this record that you get when you have a band full of great musicians, because then you can do all kinds of different stuff, right? So I love it.
Yeah, and Santana also, he has that sort of, his guitar tone is so recognizable, really maybe one of the most recognizable guitar tones in the history of rock and roll, in agree. One way, because there's not a question, it's not a doubt that it's Santana when he strikes that chord or that string. So that
you know it right away, and then from the rhythms and everything else. And one of the great successes, I think, in fusion music overall, right? And one which hasn't really, there aren't too many other imitators. Like there's a few other kind of Latin rock crossover bands. Nobody had the kind of impact that he has. No,
they had like his brother had a band called Malo or something like that, or was it Barabbas? I can't remember really, but no, not the sort of the success that Santana saw.
Yeah. Anyway, awesome suggestion. Okay, so is it my turn? I think it is, isn't it?
Yes.
So
yes.
Now we're moving on back in time to the debut record by the Kinks, called, unsurprisingly, Kinks.
Yep.
And I had heard this record quite a few times, but I hadn't really played it for a number of years. And so it was interesting to go back to it, as one does, like in prep for for these discussions. And things that struck me. So first of all, the production is superb on this record, but compared, and the obvious comparison is not so much to the Beatles, but actually to the Stones, because here the Kinks, I think, are a better sounding band than the Stones.
I agree.
They're tighter, and they're a better recorded band than the Stones at this point. But the Stones are much more famous, right?
Yeah.
And funnily enough, on the R&B covers, Ray often sounds like he's doing a Mick Jagger impression. In fact, it's like they're doing the Stones doing sort of Chicago R&B, right? But Shel Talmy, whose contribution here I would say is a story of a two-sided coin. His production is fantastic. You can hear the same sound that the Who had at the same time, because Shel Talmy knew what he was doing behind the board. Andrew Oldham had no freaking idea. So the early Stones records, I always think, don't sound nearly as good as they could. These sound much better. So the Chuck Berry covers sound really good. And the originals, of course, are amazing. So if Shel Talmy had stopped there, just producing them, this would be an even better record. But he has to throw in, because of course he was a greedy SOB, right? When he was looking to cash in. He writes 2 terrible songs, easily the worst songs in the record, both the ones that have bald in their title, right? Bald-headed Woman and I'm Driving on Bald Mountain, or whatever it is. Anyway, they're so bad. And if those had been replaced with even just middling, just middle of the pack R&B covers or blues covers, the record would have been appreciably better. But the Chuck Berry covers are great. there's several. Well, how many? There's like so obviously You Really Got Me is on here, which is amazing. And Stop Your Sobbing. So you got two really great Ray Davies compositions on here. A really rewarding listen. Just a little asterisk about those She'll Tell Me songs. What did you think?
Yeah, I love it, and it's almost like creepy that you choose to show Kinks, because I've been playing Kinks like a freak for the last 2 weeks, maybe something like that, but not the debut record, the little more later stuff by Kinks. It's just like I knew about this, obviously I have it, but and I think it's great. It's a great record, but it's just like I didn't know about later Kinks. So I've been going back to sort of, I can't remember this
like,
I don't have it
like Preservation Society around like late 60s. Yeah,
exactly. And Ape Man and whatever they are called. Let's see here. Yeah, something else by the Kinks, Face to Face, and Lola vs. Power Man.
Yeah, great era. And another great song from a little bit later around then is which I just love, which I think maybe on Muswell Hillbillies, is Celluloid Heroes, which is on. Do you have their live record, the one One for the Road? Okay, that I almost pulled that one out for my surprise record, but that is incredible. It's from like 82 or 83. It's a double album. It's wonderful. But there's a wonderful version of Celluloid Heroes, which to me is arguably the greatest song that Ray ever wrote, or one of them anyway. But yeah, that whole era, the Kinks era you're talking about is fantastic.
Yeah, fantastic! Like really mind-blowingly good. And I went 38 years of my life and I haven't discovered that. So that's just the proof of there's so much music left to discover, isn't it? No, yeah, great pick, classic.
Yeah, funny. Okay, all right, over to you.
Yeah. This is my last record before the surprise, I guess. And we are talking about this record. And yeah, Bobbi Humphrey, is that how you pronounce her name?
That sounds right to me.
Yeah, Humphrey, Blacks and Blues on Blue Note Records, let's see here, wrote it down, 73. And it's the sort of the funkier bits of the Blue Note sort of catalog, maybe. It's a pretty, when I went to this record now this morning and I played it, I was stricken, is that the word, for how many was playing on it. I didn't think that there were so many like personnel on the record, but there are a bunch. And also the singing parts is really good. I'm not a vocal jazz guy, but I think it suits the record pretty good. So, and I have another thing I want to talk about, but before that, what do you think about the music? I want to talk about it. Well,
I think the music is absolutely brilliant. This is, Blue Note, had a decline, and they try after Hard Bop falls into disfavor, right? Late 60s, early 70s. Yeah. What do they get? And also Alfred Lion has left. Francis Wolf's kind of out of the picture as well. So they're under new management, and they're trying to catch up to CTI, and others, right? Who are, in Strata East, and other people who are doing really cool, cutting edge stuff and funkier stuff. So their aces in the hole were the Mizell brothers, right? And so this is what I'm about to say should in no way be interpreted as any kind of, marginalization of Bobbi Humphrey's contribution to her own record, because it's all about her, and her playing is fantastic. But this is also equally a Mizell brothers production, right? The sound, I think there's background vocalizations as well. Certainly a lot of the so Phonce Mizell is playing clavinet. Okay, so there's a clavinet, classic sort of jazz funk instrument. And Larry Mizell is the producer. So and I should remember the other artists they did this for, but there's quite a few of them. But there's a whole bunch of records that they're involved in. So there is they're as influential on the 70s sound and black music as the guys as like Gamble and Huff were at Philadelphia International Records, like similar kind of impact. And that's why this record is so great. And in particular, Harlem River Drive is is one of the great funky jazz tracks from the early 70s. Pop track too. It's a group called Martin Hill did a great version of it years later as well. But this is the original, which is I think absolutely amazing, with that da 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 da, that kind of that sort of ascending riff in that, which is anyway. My singing was bad, but that's what I had to say about this record. I love it, and Bobbi Humphrey is an icon, and the photo is incredible. So
yeah, I think the photo is incredible. But what I really, when I did research or read up on the record, when I listened to it, I looked at all the Bobbi Humphrey records that she did, and she maybe she did like 12, 15 records or something, 5 on Blue Note.
Yeah.
And what I really have to give kudos to Blue Note for is that they didn't sexualize her. She isn't an object. In this case, she is a musician. And on all Blue Note records, she is just a musician on a cover. The clothes, the way she stands, the way the photo is taken is like any other musician, any other like Blue Note or a jazz or Blue Note cover. Then she went to Epic, and right away they did a color photo, lipstick, and dress that was really like, and right away she was objectified. And I don't get it, like, or I get it because it sells records, but Blue Note, they were all about the music, and I love that. And I think that Bobbi Humphrey on Blue Note is living proof of that.
There's a whole conversation one could have about jazz record covers, because of course then there was that whole phase where you'd have primarily black musicians playing the music, and then Prestige or whomever, or I don't actually, not sure which labels were worse, would stick out some sexy white lady on the front cover, right?
Yes.
And
Columbia did the same with Miles.
Yeah, that's right. And this only stops when Miles Davis says to I forget who his label, like, why is that white bitch on the cover, quote unquote, right? And this sort of brings an end to that, right? But and then he insisted on always having his own partner of the day, right, on his record covers. And so by this point, it was as you say, it's a very respectful and very cool cover. There's a bunch of other, you can find a bunch of because Blue Note has so many great old photos available. You can find a bunch of other shots from that shoot online as well. But anyway,
she did one for the cover artwork for her live record at Montreux, I think it is, or something like that. It has to be from the same photo session, and it's also a great, beautiful lady, beautiful artwork, and just like kudos to Blue Note.
I've never listened to her stuff, the Epic stuff. Is it any good?
No, I don't know. I haven't listened to that as well. I wanted to see what other stuff she had done on Blue Note, and when I saw her catalog, it was just so obvious, like Blue Note on Blue Note, and then just like object on a cover, just insane. Let's move on.
Okay, let's move on. Okay, so this is the record which is either called Mingus, 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 or Mingus, 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 Mingus. It looks like it should, anyway. The cover suggests it's got 4 Minguses in the title, but Discogs, where the nerds reside, appear to believe it's got 5. So we'll call it Mingus, 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 Mingus. Well, interesting record, and one of Mingus's 3 records on Impulse, which were all quite distinct. And he of course was another spiky character who changed labels as often as he changed suits. So it was but his stay at Impulse is arguably the high point of his career. And actually, frankly, afterwards it kind of goes downhill for a variety of reasons, mental health being one of them. But he's in superb form here. This is practically a big band record.
Yes.
He's got a 10-piece group. He's got a half a dozen horns on here. I found it. The most obvious comparison is with the Black Saint and the Sinner Lady, which is again on Impulse and comes out, I think, a little bit before, maybe after, but I think before. And you correct me if I'm wrong on that one.
Yeah, I think it's before.
Yeah, but I find this smoother and more melodic than that record, and in fact, in some other records. I mean, sometimes I like where I struggle with. I think Mingus is a genius, and I love some of his stuff. But sometimes listening to a full record of his all the way through, I struggle a bit. It's a bit of a circus atmosphere sometimes to what's going on, which I find can be a bit of a struggle. But what I love about this is often there's so much focus from Mingus himself on his compositions and the arrangement that you forget. Well, you don't forget, but you miss out on the fact a bit that he's a great bassist, and there's more focus in this record on his bass playing than there typically is. Maybe I'm sure Mingus heads will probably tell me I'm wrong, but I certainly got more out of his bass playing on this than I do elsewhere, which is great because he is so good. There's a couple retakes on here, so he's had another couple of runs at two songs that were originally on Mingus, right? So Better Get It in Your Soul is here again, slightly retitled, and then Goodbye Pork Pie Hat is here, called Theme for Lester Young, right? So he's having and I think he had only just written the latter at the time Mingus comes out. So this is the time maybe he's giving himself a longer run at this one. My overall feeling about this record is there's stuff I love and stuff I don't. And I've just got and I looked through the sort of the personnel, and I realized the stuff that I don't like is the stuff with Charlie Mariano playing alto sax, because he has this kind of what I'm going to call a kind of a Tennessee Williams soundtrack sound, where there's all these bent notes on alto, like on I, X, Love, and Celia, and so on, which, and that's a lot of, I realized that's what I don't like about some parts of the Black Saint as well. It's that same sort of swoopy alto sound, which sounds, I could say, like I'm watching a Tennessee Williams film adaptation, right? Like, whatever, Cat in a Hot Tin Roof, or that's Tennessee Williams anyway, but that's sort of I don't like that sound, but the other ones, particularly the ones with Eric Dolphy, who's playing alto, I love. So 2BS, Mood Indigo with just Jackie Bard and Mingus on the piano, Mingus on the bass, Lester Young with Booker Ervin on tenor, and then Hora, here's my Latin, Hora Decubitus, with Eric Dolphy's very Eric Dolphy solo. I think those are incredible tracks. I just am not wild about the Charles Mariano playing. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I haven't given any. I haven't what's it called? Thought of those tracks in that way. So the next time I'm listening to one of those records, I'm definitely gonna try to think about his playing on it. But I think it's a killer lineup. They are playing their heart out. I think, and I love this Mingus period. But I agree with you. It's a little bit of a circus act sometimes. But that feels like somewhat the sort of the Mingus life in a way.
Yeah.
And I think that the Black Saint later is a better, more solid record, but I almost think of that as a concept album, whereas this is more like
there's a quote from in the liner notes where whoever's writing it is says Mingus has rediscovered the semi-improvised ensemble style, the thrilling collective spontaneity that has been missing in jazz since Dixieland descended to its current boozy geniality as a substitute businessman's bounce. So in other words, that I think Mingus was explicit about this too. He's reaching back to the sort of free-flowing spontaneity of New Orleans jazz, right? Yeah. And so you do get and with his shouting out to people and so on, it's not tightly controlled. He is controlling it, but more in a kind of driving everyone forward, like he's got a sled team or something, right? As opposed to it being sort of very perfectionist. but yeah, so I think he achieves his goal here. It's just whether or not, one likes the results, and sometimes I do, and sometimes I don't. But you never listen to a Mingus record and think, well, that was dull or that was not very. No. He's challenging the listener like all the way, politically, musically, like you name it.
And he played with some of the best, and I think that he also managed to really lit the fire under his friends when they played during the session. So I mean, we're talking about one of the best sort of jazz musicians in the history of US music. But I agree with what you're saying about the music and the Impulse records, definitely.
Yeah. Well, okay, so now we're on to our special surprises, our ambush records. Right? Call them what you want.
I don't know how you. I mean, when I was sitting today and was picking one record to like show, and I was thinking like, okay, what do I want to recommend to Allan to? I mean, first and foremost, listen to and give a try. But I also want it to be something that you know about, artists you know about, and maybe you know about the entire record. Maybe, I don't know. Hopefully not. But also is something that is reissued, and I think you can get, you and the viewers can sort of get. So I had that sort of.
I'm excited. I can't wait.
Yeah. So let's see. Okay. I want it also to be connected to Sweden, and it's not. It's more Norway, but the Scandinavian sort of sound, because hey, I'm the Swede, isn't so 1968. The brilliant Terje Rypdal released a record in Norway called Bleak House, and I don't know if you know about this record.
Now, I'm sorry, I was rudely speaking at the same time as you were speaking when you said the name of the artist.
Terje Rypdal.
Okay.
He is a Norwegian guitarist, and he is most famous for his work in the 70s on the ECM label. Yeah. So he was one of the sort of the big names on the ECM, sort of the ECM records. He and Palle Danielsson and what was the I can't remember the names now, but this was produced and released in Norway in 1968. Oh, yeah. And it's fantastic. One of the best jazz records from Scandinavia, in my opinion.
What's the label?
The label is actually, now this is a reissue because I can't afford a original press. So this is from the Numero group, I think. And if not new, I think
it's not ECM, eh? It wasn't their ECM originally?
No, so it was not ECM. Let's see here. It was first released on Polydor in Norway, and also on Carousel. That's I think a Swedish or a Swedish Norwegian label. Piss poor quality, pressing quality back in the day, but this reissue is the Numero group, and it sounds brilliant. Really good pressing of this one. And I don't know if you can get this in like on Amazon or anything like that now, but it's on Discogs, so you can get it.
I have my means. Tell me about the music.
Yeah, but the music, I mean, he's one of those sort of famous guitarists, and I think that if you listen to a lot of Terje Rypdal, you will sort of recognize his guitar tone also. But he dabbles in a little bit of everything. Like sax also, but not I mean, he should stay with the guitar, I think. So 3 songs. The most known one, I think, is Dead Man's Tale, the first one, 7 minutes, penned by Terje Rypdal, and 3 songs on the back, on the B side. And I don't think that there's any like famous Jon Christensen on drums. He's also a ECM sort of ECM guy, and John Garbarek, tenor saxophone. Okay. He was the guy that I was fishing for later on, but the rest of the lineup is just like pretty unknown.
Garbarek's a huge name, though, right? I mean, he's Mr. ECM practically, right? Him and Keith Jarrett and a few other people, right? But yeah.
I think that at least in the beginning of the 70s, Terje Rypdal's first ECM record came out in 1971, I think, and he released a bunch of them there up to, I don't know, maybe late 70s or something like that. So definitely an artist to check out, but this record in particular, in my opinion, 1968, great one.
You have me intrigued, and that's great because I'd heard of Terry Ripdahl, but only from sort of flipping through because my ECM my ECM collection is not very big, but it's kind of that's where I want to go in collecting, in one of the places I want to go in collecting in the next few years, and so that's a name that comes up all the time. Yes. But I've not done much listening to him, and yeah, I'm okay. So now I know where to start, which is great. I have my only experience of Scandinavian guitarist is when my wife and I were in New York just before the pandemic, actually. In fact, we were in New York, pretty sure coronavirus was swirling around the city. At the COVID was swirling around the city at the time. This was February 2020. And we saw, or end of January, beginning of February, we saw Jakob Bro. I don't know, do you know him? He's an ECM guy. He's a guitarist, funny guy. We saw him at the Village Vanguard, which was a bit of a pilgrimage to go to the Village Vanguard. Comes out in his socks. He's wearing a pair of corduroy pants with the bum is sort of hanging down. His shirt is kind of untucked. He looked like he just literally got up sleeping on a sofa and to get out to play, but it was beautiful, very atmospheric kinds of soundscape kind of music. But okay, so I will look that up, and I will shoot you a note when I listen to it.
Do it, yeah. It would be nice to get a sort of a report when you.
I'm sure with your recommendation, I'm sure it's going to be great. Okay, so I struggled and struggled. I'm going to cheat a bit because I'm going to pitch one record that because I saw the band 2 nights ago and they're so good. I just want to plug them because they're current. And this is actually, they're a Cuban Canadian band called Ocan. Okay. And these two women they're born in Cuba. They moved to Canada about 10 years ago. It's contemporary Cuban music. Fantastic. This album won the Canadian Music Awards, are called the Junos, the Juno Awards, and this won the best world music record in like 2020. Anyway, I'm plugging these guys just because they're great. They're touring, I think, the West Coast of the States right now, and if you get a chance to see them, it's a fantastic show. Incredible musicians, just so good. But contemporary Latin music. Anyway, so I'm just plugging that one. That's my plug. But here's my real secret record, and this is. Not as cerebral as your choice. In fact, far from it. But in fact, these guys are probably some of the poster children for not really being cerebral. But it's a great record, and it's one which stands somewhat in the shadow of much better known, but not nearly as good work that this band did. And that is this record by Whitesnake, Saints and Sinners. Now, do you know this one?
I know about it. I've never owned it, and I've listened to a little bit. I had a heavy metal period when I was a little bit younger, so it's kind of funny, but because I know a lot of facts about metal music, so when I meet metal heads, I often know more about the genre than they do. But yeah. So I know about the record. Definitely.
Well, you're talking to a metalhead, although really my interest in metal sort of winds up around 1982, 83, thereabouts. But in any event, so this is, first of all, it's got this tremendous cover. But this, and there's David Coverdale in the back. So of course, David Coverdale was the guy that took over from Ian Gillan quite well, actually, in Deep Purple. And then but what happens there, of course, is that Richie Blackmore doesn't like the kind of more bluesy, funky sound that Coverdale and Glenn Hughes are bringing into Purple, says some kind of vaguely racist things about it, and then leaves to form Rainbow. And so Coverdale is left running Purple, which limps along for another record or two, and then they die out. And then he forms his own band, and he has an incredible set of pipes, like just remarkable.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, maybe top 10, top 5.
One of the top 5 heavy rock singers in history, right? Easily. And so they released 4 or 5 records between like 77 and 81, 82. They're about with some fairly similar lineup. But this has, interestingly, as you can see there, the very first version, Here I Go Again, which of course they redid in their hair metal phase later in the 80s. But this is, to my ears, a superior version of that. And the whole record is full of bangers, like just really good pre-hair metal, heavy, bluesy rock and roll, and with Coverdale's vocals, which are just always top notch. And so this is just, frankly, extremely enjoyable, and it doesn't get much love, except for amongst the Whitesnake cognoscenti, and I hate to use those 2 words in combination, but nevertheless, it doesn't get much love in general, but it is well worth adding. And just thought I'd recommend it to you. But so your tastes are not so much metal anymore, though, eh?
No, I listen to a little bit, but it's not the sort of not the Iron Maiden, not the Deep Purple and stuff like that. And I have almost the entire catalog of Opeth. It's a Swedish band that plays sort of progressive metal, but I don't listen to that anymore either. I tend to when I listen to music, it's mostly jazz and psychedelic music nowadays. But back in the day, I was a huge fan of metal, Metallica, Slayer, some of those trashier bands in particular. But this, I don't think I've ever heard this one. Which year was
this? Is 1982.
82.
Yeah,
backside almost looks a little bit like David Bowie said, "Man Who Sold the World." Second press cover. So
it's anyway, spectacular hair, all his own.
Check it out.
There you go. So that's a story. That was fun again.
We made it.
We made it. Yeah, exactly. And so, well, we'll reunite. We won't spoil it now. We've been having some discussions about some other variations of this that we might do. So stay tuned. So to all my viewers, thank you very much, and to all of Jonas's viewers watching, thank you. Any last words?
No, just I'll see you the next time. It's definitely going to be more times. It's too much fun to not do it.
That's it. Okay, stay safe, everybody. Thanks, Jonas.
Bye.
Bye-bye.